A warm welcome to all our viewers, to our series Natural Medicine. Now, it's known that we have to do various things for our health. For example, maintaining a good diet. We know that we should drink pure, clean water, and we also know that we should have a healthy mental attitude to life and to everything that moves us. All of these points are scientifically well documented, that they have an impact on our health. But did you notice? I forgot to mention one thing, which is good air. How do I get good air? How do I breathe correctly? What can I do for my body to properly de-acidify through breathing? That's the subject of the following report, and I hope you will enjoy watching it. Hello dear QS24 community. In yoga, the breath is the link between body and mind. Breathing exercises play one of the central roles here when it comes to physical, psychological, energetic and spiritual development. Our life takes place between our first breath and our last breath. The flow of life is reflected in our breath. And yet, this ancient knowledge seems to have disappeared from our heads. In 2020, the majority of people wore face masks for hours every day, and most of them still do so in some cases. The measure, which should actually provide protection, leads to the fact that the connection between body and mind, which is the breath, is interrupted. There's also a constant media-fueled fear of diseases, which literally constricts people's breath and prevents deep breathing. As if that weren't enough, we mostly live in big cities with unnaturally high temperatures, and the last bit of healing power from our atmosphere is decreasing. In this video, we get to the bottom of the current problems, question why we as humans have forgotten the healing power of the breath, and show how you can improve your energy level, your immune system, and how you can easily regain your emotional balance. Let's start right away with a basic introduction to the most essential breathing knowledge, so that you realize the importance of this subject. It fundamentally decides between a life in unconsciousness and lack of energy, and a life full of abundance and inner strength. Introduction: Breathing knowledge. In order to understand the meaning of our breath, we have to divide it into three basic levels: the physical, mental, and spiritual level. Physical. From a material point of view, the breath is symbolized by oxygen. This is also the visible part that is recognized by academic medicine and is used in many therapies. A lack of oxygen in the cells is the source of physical illness. Otto Heinrich Warburg introduced the so-called Warburg effect in 1931. He postulated that cancer cells would get their energy through a non-oxidative glucose metabolism, so through fermentation. If the cells have enough oxygen available, the cancer growth would be stopped vehemently. That very hypothesis was proven in 2006 by a research team from the universities of Jena and Potsdam. The renowned American doctor Stephen Levin said the following: "Oxygen is the source of life for all cells. All serious illnesses are accompanied by low oxygen status. Lack of oxygen in body tissues is a sure indicator of illness." End of quote. Just as our entire organism benefits from the power of breathing, every single cell is also involved in this metabolism. Only the exchange of old, used energy and the supply of new energy can keep us alive. So, physically speaking, with every breath, we get fuel for our cells for building. On the other hand, exhaling also serves to remove the garbage that has accumulated in our bodies. Where our flow of life has been interrupted, the breath can get the life forces going again, also far beyond our conscious understanding. Since the breath is a constant companion and a free therapeutic, people neglect it and attach no value to it. Since it's been with us from the beginning, we take it for granted. And yet, we know that after just 3 minutes without breathing, we would have irreparable damage to the body. So, I'd like to introduce you to the first secret of the breath. There are 2 different types in the physiological functions of our body. For example, our autonomous nervous system, which regulates our heartbeat and the blood supply to our body, is completely automated. We can't consciously intervene in this process. On the other hand, there are also functions of our body that can be controlled voluntarily, such as our muscles that enable us to move and speak. The breath has a special position here because it can be controlled consciously. It also flows automatically, for example, at night when we sleep. One of the biggest problems in our society is that people almost never use their breath consciously to attain better health. The second level, mental. Now that we have looked at the physical aspect of breathing, let us now consider the spiritual aspect. You surely have experienced waking up bathed in sweat and panting at night. Your breathing reflects your emotional experience. It's the same when you're relaxing at home and have slow, calm breathing. When something really amazes us, we say that it takes our breath away. We have access to our physical health through the breath, but also to our emotional experience. By consciously controlling it, we can regulate panic attacks more confidently, reduce stress, and induce deep, mystical experiences. By not repressing and switching off the emotions, but tackling them with the breath, deeply entangled emotions can loosen and clear the way for an unrestricted life in abundance. The third level, spiritual. If we also look at the spiritual level of the breath, we find that even in Zen Buddhism, it is said that a student should pay attention to the flow of breath until enlightenment finds them. They can then inhale the whole world and realize that the whole world is in them, and they are in the whole world. In all of the traditions of conscientiology, the breath is the key for deeper states of consciousness, which nowadays can also be proven by brainwave technology. The Hebrew word for breath is neshem, and the word for the most important thing in the soul is nesham, derived from neshem. You have now received a basic introduction to the 3 levels, so your life depends largely on your physical fitness, your mind, and your spirituality. Now is the time to take stock of what reality is like for most people. Which disruptive factors affect us and our breath negatively, so that we mostly live in lack of energy and pain instead of being in exuberant health. The negative influences. In our current time, there are 4 major negative influences that we struggle with on a daily basis. The good news is that all influences can also be bypassed to gain health. The first negative impact on our health is our chronic shortness of breath. Very few people receive training for it. That's why athletes inhale air with around 20% oxygen and exhale 12% oxygen again. Non-athletes also inhale around 20% oxygen, however, they exhale 17% again, and thus only utilize around 3% of the existing oxygen. Untrained people, therefore, have to breathe almost 3 times as much as trained people in order to receive the same energy. So it's fundamentally about the correct oxygen intake or utilization. Constant lack of oxygen in the body leads to tension, headaches, circulatory problems, fatigue, and poor concentration. This is an influence that affects us unconsciously and that we could change at any time by optimizing our breathing. A distinction is made between chest, diaphragm, and full breathing. You'll find out shortly which is the right one. Before that, let's look at the second negative influence. This shows through our chronic stress and media-fueled scare tactics. Our mind directly affects our breathing. It's not possible to breathe calmly when you're excited. In fear and stress, the sympathetic nervous system causes the trachea and bronchi to widen, which allows for deeper breathing, to provide more oxygen for the escape and combat mechanism. However, since we usually do not use either of the two mechanisms, this additionally generated energy is transported into the bronchi due to lack of movement, which causes difficulty in breathing. The accumulated and unused energy triggers a wide cascade of harmful effects in the body. Even the smallest changes in the respiratory muscles change the volume of the lungs and lead to disorders. People who are chronically stressed are usually also tense in the back or neck, but also in the chest, and thus prevent beneficial deep breathing. That directly leads us to the next big problem, which we were able to observe, especially in 2020, and which will have after effects for some time to come, which we can hardly estimate yet. By wearing face masks, we have slipped into a social health threat. This is because there is reduced intake of oxygen, as well as reduced release of oxygen during exhalation. As we inhale again, the exhaled air is still in the mask, instead of new oxygen-rich air to breathe. This in turn favours the increasing lack of oxygen in the entire human organism, as well as in every small cell, which has to fight for its survival anyway, as the milieu is negatively influenced. Foreign bodies and pathogens can't be transported out of the body when wearing a mask. One of the most basic mechanisms of breathing is therefore blocked. It's estimated that the body detoxifies up to 70% through breathing, and this knowledge is also often forgotten. When wearing face masks, this detoxification is completely eliminated. In the course of this, we come straight to the fourth negative influence. Because our atmosphere is currently not beneficial to health either, most people live in big cities and are influenced by fine dust, toxins, heavy metals, and electromagnetic radiation. The humidity is also not at optimum levels, as the positive influence of nature is missing. In addition, there were maximum temperatures again in 2020, which were literally breathtaking. By changing the atmosphere, it can be shown that a person between 40 and 45 years of age has the same functional disorders today like a 70-year-old person had 100 years ago. This is due to increasing environmental pollution, which is the second leading cause of death worldwide, with over 7 million people a year. Please have a look at this graphic, which you can now see on the screen, to compare the functional disorders that a 40-year-old has today, just like a 70-year-old person 100 years ago. So, what is the solution for health through breath? Now that we have dealt with the negative influences, for a long time, it is time to present the solutions. You too can regain full health if you provide your body with enough oxygen. And above all, also take into account the mental and spiritual level. I'd therefore like to give you two possible solutions that will immediately help you to improve your health. Learn to breathe fully. Please reflect on your breathing now. Imagine how you breathe when you're in your regular everyday life. Do you have an increased breathing rate? Do you breathe through your chest? Is your exhalation shortened and your inhalation lengthened? Is it irregular? Most people are subconsciously trapped in some form of hyperventilation, which not only happens in very stressful situations, but also chronically in our everyday life. This has multiple factors, such as previous illnesses, trauma, pain, existential fears or stress. The Russian physician, Dr. Buteyko, recommends reconditioning the respiratory center to establish needs-based breathing in the organism. This means that we only breathe as much as we really need in order not to send false signals to the body. With this breathing method, it is possible to balance the pH in the body and to minimize the excess of acids in the body due to malnutrition and stress. I'd therefore like to go through the basic exercise with you. Repeat it and memorize it as best you can. Please sit upright in a chair. You can now lean against the backrest at any time. Be aware of your sitting position. Let your shoulders hang relaxed and pull them back slightly so that both shoulders are in line. Keep your lower jaw loose with your mouth closed. Now place one hand on your breastbone, the second on your stomach. Breathe in, relax through your nose, and out through your nose, and close your eyes. Now concentrate on the breathing movement that you can feel under your hands. You should feel significantly more breathing movement on your stomach. If this is not the case, slowly begin to direct the inhaled air further down into the abdomen, but without inhaling deeper. After changing your breathing, place both hands on your stomach. Continue to breathe in and out through your nose in a relaxed manner. Do this basic exercise as often as possible. Breathing at rest should be 5 to 8 breaths per minute, ideally in set training phases. Fast breathing increases the heart rate, slow breathing decreases it. Increased inhalation promotes tension and cramping, so you should breathe easily and deeply and let it flow naturally with no pressure. It's all about having as free, extended exhalation phases as possible in order to overcome the obstruction to exhalation. Inhale through the nose as silently as possible. Breathing through the nose causes cleansing, moistening and warming. Please do not breathe in through your mouth, otherwise there will be tension in the chest area. Exhaling should also take place calmly through the nose, or slowly through the mouth, using a so-called lip break. It's also advisable to remain calm during exercising. The best method is called full breathing. To do this, the abdominal wall rises first, then the downward movement of the lung expands into the lower ribs and back. Then the shoulders are raised, so that the entire breathing space from the diaphragm up to the top of the lungs is used. Then exhale immediately. The breath rises from below, from the stomach out into the tips of the lungs like a wave movement. Second solution, adjust the atmosphere. The breath and the energy we get from it are only as good as the atmosphere in which we live. Anyone who owns an aquarium knows that fish will only be healthy if the water is also clean. So the atmosphere around us is just as important. And as we have already noticed, there are big problems here too. Ultimately, there are 4 steps that permanently affect your health when living in a city or near an industrial area. 1. The mucous membranes of the nose dry out and slowly lose their natural filter function. Fine dust, pollen, viruses and bacteria can now enter our body. 2. As a result, the bronchi are affected. They can no longer fulfill their defensive function. They begin to congest, and we can no longer cough up the fine dust. 3. As a result, due to the lack of water in the air we breathe and the fine dust that has now reached the lungs, we lose the alveoli in the lungs, whose natural task is gas exchange. The membrane function required for this, and thus, gradually, its adequate functionality. 4. Finally, the gas exchange in the lungs is reduced, and the blood no longer receives enough oxygen. And on the other hand, the blood can no longer adequately dispose of the CO2. For this reason, more and more people are discovering the healing power of forests for themselves, and the so-called forest bathing has become a trend. The practice of Shinrin-yoku, the Japanese forest floor, has not yet been researched long enough, but is considered a recognized stress management method by all health authorities there. There's also a trend towards more mindfulness in nature in German-speaking countries, even if science will need many years to be able to report on the full range of beneficial effects. However, it is a fact that we are beings of light who feed on information, and there's no greater exchange of information than in nature, where we can send and receive signals. A healthy atmosphere offers sufficient humidity, the right temperature, and is free of pollutants and toxins. There are no air conditioners or apartments on the 10th floor with no grounding. Try to get as much fresh air as you can. If possible, put some plants in your home. Spend more time in parks and gardens, and reconnect with your original essence. Solutions in practice. Now, of course, I would like to introduce you to practical ways in which you can integrate these approaches into your life. The Project Brain, mental training of the future, is dedicated to this topic. On the YouTube channel Brain Plus, you'll find the so-called Breathwork video series. There you'll get to know different breathing techniques, with which you can increase your energy, process emotions, relieve stress, avoid panic attacks, and achieve a lot more easily. This is the essential knowledge that we should actually learn in school. You'll receive succinct knowledge in each episode to put the breathing technique into practice. You can also find further explanations on the YouTube channel, because in our understanding, the breath is also the gate for an active expansion of consciousness, so the core of mental training. So you have already learned the first part of the solution, which is the correct breathing technique. What about the right atmosphere? How do you get this easily and without any problems? A biotech process was developed for this purpose, the so-called Brain Plus device. This is a physical device that has been shown to increase your brain power by 25% in just 21 minutes, and can also set your biological age back by 5 to 10 years. This is achieved by using a sophisticated process to change the breathing atmosphere and make it available to you in an energetically higher state. You can see it as a respiratory supplement device, which gives you additional energy with every breath, so that you not only breathe efficiently, but also absorb the most beneficial breathing atmosphere. The energetic increase in the body leads to a relief of mental, emotional, and physical complaints. So that you get an easy start, there is currently a free online training, which you can visit on the website brain-plus.de. It's great that you now know the healing power of your breath, and that you'll hopefully be able to use it more consciously in future. Feel free to write your opinion about it in the comments. Your health is now in your hands. Good luck with it, and see you for the next video. So, dear viewers, I very much hope that this report was able to give you valuable impulses. For my part, I think it's just great what you can do with just your breathing. I once had a Buteyko breath therapist here. She told me that we can eat as much rubbish every day we can, have such sour thoughts all day, but if we breathe right 3, 4, 5 times a minute, then we can get all the acid out of the body. And with that, I just remember a quote from Nobel Prize winner Otto Warburg. He once said that no disease can exist in a basic environment. Therefore, all diseases come from acid. We're all well advised to breathe properly, to breathe good air. And I wish you that. Look after yourself, go to the woods, take these wonderful forest walks, take care of yourself. See you next time.